Did you know that financial advisors use a simple retirement planning software and then they charge an extremely high fee in order to say that they are worth their penny? Let me show you how you can take advantage of the exact same tools. Okay, this video is broken up into three phases. Number one, we're going to break down really simply how you can do the most quickest calculation to be able to determine how much you're going to need for retirement. Number two, we're going to go through some advantages and things that you can do to maximize that retirement saving. And then number three, we're going to unpack all of it and be able to show you how you can capitalize on the maximum amount of savings in retirement and also having a good plan leading up to retirement. So let's unpack it in this video today. All right, so what we have here, this is the Canadian Retirement Income Calculator. And so one of the first steps with figuring out how much you need to save for retirement is first off to look at how much am I going to receive from government types of incentives, as well if there's any kind of pensions or things of that nature that you have through your workplace. Whatever it is, you need to be able to do those calculations, find out what it is that you currently have, and then from there you can see how much more money you're going to be needing in your investment account to be able to determine that. And so there's really simple calculators out there. So, like this one here, we've got the Canadian Retirement Income Generator Calculator. And so you can see this is the very first step on the calculator. I will leave a link down below. You could fill this out really quickly. We're just going to even do it together. I'm going to make some general assumptions and we're going to probably have this thing hammered out in like the next 5 minutes. So let's have a look at it here. So let's put in my date of birth. Okay, here we go. Then we're going to look at, okay, what's my annual income from all sources? Let's just say it's a little bit more. Let's say 50,000. And then here it gives us a rough estimate of how much we're going to want in retirement, but let's say we're wanting something like 40,000 because that's a little bit more comfortable for us. And it says that our life expectancy should be 85. Let's assume that. And then Canadian pension plan. I'm currently living on Ontario, so I'm not going to be putting Quebec. Do I have a Canadian pension plan contributions based on your past contributions? We're going to click no. And we're going to use their average because we want to do this quickly. Do you plan on working after you receive your CPP? No. We're going to keep this as a very, very simple plan. Employer pension? No, there is no employer pension. Retirement savings? We're going to say no. No to any other investments because we're just trying to figure out how much we're going to actually need over and above our CPP. Will you have other income? No. And old age security. Yes, I plan to live here, and yes, for 40 years. Therefore, now we have done the calculator to determine how much money we're going to need over and above the amount here. So my wife and I, if we were both, let's say, aiming for that $40,000, we can see here what we would get based off of our current income, how much we'd be getting from the government, and then we can see what the difference is. Now there is a thing in like OAS where they do like clawbacks, but that's when you start getting into a higher amount. So because I'm just doing this as a really simple assessment, I'm just trying to figure out what it's going to take for me just to get into a comfort level that my wife and I would be happy to get into. If we start going into a bit more of a higher income, get a little bit more advanced, then you might be looking at using some of those advanced softwares, which we'll cover later. But just to get a quick ballpark estimate, we can see here that we have a difference of $21,000. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a principle called the 4% rule. And so the 4% rule is so simple. It's probably the benchmark out there when it comes to retirement savings and withdrawal rates. Basically, all you're doing is you're taking 4% of all of your investments and using that for your expenses and then adjusting for inflation. Essentially, what you're doing is you're saying, this is the amount of money that I'm going to receive. So let's say it's $20,000. And then because you're just adjusting for inflation, you're always going to have that same value of your money because you're just adjusting for inflation. You start off with getting 4% of your investment value, and then all you're doing is adjusting for inflation to slowly increase and potentially decrease if there is deflationary periods of your spending. And so that's simply it. And so all we have to do is just reverse engineer that and know what we need to do in order to do that calculation. So how do we reverse engineer that? Well, all we have to do is pull out our handy dandy calculator. And what we want to do is we want to put it to the power of. So let's just assume that we have, a 2.5% inflation rate. You could do anywhere between, say, 2 and 3. That seems to be a fairly average number. So I'm going to do about 2.5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that 2, I'm going to take 1.025, and I'm going to put it to the power of however many years until I go to retire. So let's just say, off of my current situation, let's just say 20 years, round it up. Well, if I take that and do that calculation, I'm going to get to relatively about 1.63. And so now I know that I'm adjusting for inflation and I know how much money I'm going to need in retirement by taking that 1.63 and I'm going to times it by this 21,000. So if I take 21,031 and I'm going to times that by 1.63, that means that in 20 years' time, on average, if inflation goes up by 2.3%, I'm going to need $34,280. So now I need to look at, if I'm going to apply the 4% rule, knowing that I'm going to take 4% of my investment dollars out, now what I have to do is I have to just basically divide this by 0.04, which will tell me the total amount of assets that I currently need to have at retirement. So we can see here that I need $857,000 at retirement. And so here's how we can determine how we can obtain those dollars. Again, keep in mind that if I'm going to get to that $40,000, I'm not going to be having any of the clawbacks from OAS, and my CPP, if my income remains the same, that will remain the same as well too. So this is a really simple calculation, and it's fairly accurate. So if I go to this compound interest calculator, we can see here that if I take this initial investment, so let's say we started off with $100,000, because at this point, let's just say that's what I currently have in savings in my RRSPs, TFSAs, and like. And let's just say that our interest rate, let's do an 8% annualized return. And I'm going to do a calculation for the next 20 years. So we can see that our total value is $492,000. So you can see we're still a little ways off from hitting our target. And so now what we want to do is maybe look at monthly contributions. So let's just say I did a monthly contribution of $200, and I calculate that. You can see I'm still a little bit shy here, so let's just give it another $200. So let's do 400. Let's calculate that. We're still a little bit shy. So let's do 500,000. And I'll do this calculation. Still a little bit shy. Let's do 600. There we are. That's fairly close, a little bit lower. So this gives us a ballpark of how much money we need to save for retirement. And then we know how we can actually withdraw those funds. So we know that, we're not going to have to make any more adjustments. We know we're going to hit that $40,000. We know that, everything is getting adjusted for inflation. Therefore, we're going to be able to have those dollars. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take this a step further, and we're going to dig into how we can actually increase our retirement portfolio, and we're not even going to contribute any more dollars towards the retirement portfolio. Let's see how we can maximize this. So let's get back over to that Canadian pension calculator. Okay, and so what I did here was I took the $100,000 that we had saved, I put it into the RRSP, and then I put $50,000 into the tax-free savings account. So I split it between both. I don't care about the rate of return. That's not what I'm looking at here. I just wanted to just quickly add those numbers in and just show you this is what it would look like if we were to just withdraw all of those things on a regular basis. But check this out. We would have $31,000, and then at 75, because our OAS has a bump up, it would be 31,941. And so we can see here that we actually know what our investments are doing, but what would happen? How do we take this to the next level? Well, here's an interesting thing. What if we went over to our Canadian pension, okay? And then in here, let's just say we deferred our Canadian pension until 70. And then we went over to our retirement savings and we took our RRSPs and we decided to actually use them before we ended up taking our retirement. And you can see here, now if I take my tax-free savings account and we start those later and we burn up all of our RRSPs, let's have a look at what this has done. Well, now you can see there's a difference in how the portfolio functions, but what would that look like in regards to an income? So you can see here that between 65 and 70, which is actually when you're a little bit more on the healthy side and you're probably going to want to go on vacations and stuff, now you've got a boost by about $5,000 until you're 70. And then when you're 70, you can see that you actually still have a boost of about $800 extra. And then when you're 75, you have another boost. And so what ends up happening is by actually playing around with different types of tax advantages that you can take and utilizing these programs effectively, you could simply increase the retirement amount that you're able to have. You're simply able to increase the amount of money that you have in your account. And so that's a really cool thing. Another thing I want to get across to you is also how you withdraw your funds. Because right here you can see how we've actually allocated them. And then even with the tax-free savings account, and you might be learning, okay, you know what? I'm not going to get 5% or 8%. That's not going to be the average because, you know, there's this thing called sequence of return risk, and, you know, you start learning all sorts of things that way. And then you look at different types of withdrawal methods. You've got like the guardrail approach. You've got the bucket approach. Like the guardrails is essentially saying, you know, if, you know, the economy is doing really good and it hits up to a certain tier mark, then I'm going to be able to increase my spending. And if it hits, you know, really low, then I'm going to reduce my spending for that year. And so you're slowly increasing and reducing it, where something like a bucket strategy is saying, okay, I'm going to have a bunch of assets in, you know, short-term investment style for, say, a year or two, and then I'm going to have some other buckets. So I'm going to have another bucket in really high risk because I'm going to be, you know, saving that for the long term. And so you have these different buckets that you use, and depending on how the economy performs, you use those different buckets. So then you start learning the 4% rule is not the only way that you can do a withdrawal method, and you're trying to squeeze every penny. And so let me just show you another thing here. This is, again, all of these links, the retirement calculators, I'm going to leave them all down below. Again, you know, here's FICAL, so it's retirement planning, and you can do a lot of testing here. I'm not going to do that today, but what I want to do is I want to look at different withdrawal strategies. Look at the various different withdrawal strategies. You know, like even this is one that I really found kind of interesting, this Vanguard Dynamic Spending. It has like using a combination method of different types of investment strategies. So you can look up a lot of these. And if you're at that advanced level, like you're not wanting just the basic, you know, I want to know how much I should save for retirement and just really getting a ballpark feel of it, which, I mean, you can do that in 15 minutes. You know, this one here, you can start figuring out what you would do. Now, the hard part about all of this that I found for myself, being, you know, a DIY investor myself, and not paying the huge fees that are associated with a financial advisor. I feel for the most part, a lot of financial advisors, they hide behind their program and their software, and they say, yeah, sure, you can get a higher rate of return by simply doing it on your own, because there's, you know, the SPIVA scorecard that basically shows that actively managed funds cannot outperform the market on average in the long term by a whopping like, you know, 80, 90%. And so that really is something that, you know, throws alarm bells up for me. But then they say, well, sure, you're going to pay the fee there, but now you have this planning software or, our expertise that we're putting at play. And so, when we're using our expertise software and we're looking at your situation, we're maximizing your returns. And you saw on this example here that they actually can maximize a lot of the advantages and they can boost your investment. Like if you're having to pay an extra $1,000, if you're going to save $2,000, that could be a benefit. And I think for the most part, those are really good things to have. But what I think is beneficial for myself is, as a DIYer, is being able to dig into these things. And so the problem with trying to get into the granular of all of this and really start figuring out how can I maximize, my RRSPs, my TFSAs, should I contribute to my RRSPs or my TFSAs, or which one should I withdraw first? When should I pull my CPP? When should I pull my OAS? All of these things are complicated and no situation is exactly the same. There's actually scenarios to be able to say, okay, you know what, you should delay your CPP till you're 70. And then there's scenarios where it's like you can actually maximize things like GIS. Again, this is Canadian, but you can maximize GIS when you're if you were to start retirement at 60. And so, there's different ways that you can use your financial, you can use your current scenario and maximize your investment dollars. And so, this is just giving you an example of what things you can do. So even if you did the most basic approach, you could do that, you'd be fine. And then if you just wanted to even get a little bit more advanced and use some different techniques and just enhance what you're already doing slightly, that's great. Now, let me go down the third option and something that you can do yourself. And again, I'm going to leave these links down below. Keep in mind that at Good Fruit Investors, we don't receive any financial incentive through affiliates or sponsorship. And the reason why we do this is because we want to stay neutral to you, the person watching this, and actually create a community space where we can actually grow together and we can talk about financial investing without anybody selling each other things. And so if that sounds something that's interesting to you, go and check out Good Fruit Investors. I'll leave a link down below. Jump into the community space. Let's have some discussions. Let's have it where nobody's selling each other anything and we're just having simply unbiased, pure conversations about finance and just talking about, rates of returns and things that actually benefit all of us. We're all trying to grow. We all want to maximize our situation. And as a DIY investor, it can be very difficult trying to sift through every piece of information and trying to find all of the things that we need to be a successful investor. And so I want you to know that there's a space available to be able to have those discussions, and I'm looking forward to see you in those discussions. Okay, so next off, what we have here is, let's go to, since we're talking about Canada, and yes, I will give an American option as well too, that I have seen beneficial. Again, no affiliate links down below. You want to go check them out, just go check them out yourself. You can also find other software out there. For Canada, I could not find a lot of other software. Again, I'm not selling this software. I'm not receiving any affiliate links through Good Fruit Investors. This is simply me just giving you the information and you just sign up on your own if you're interested in something like this. Again, don't care. Even if you don't go with it, don't care. I want you to just know what kinds of things are out there, and it's important for the information to be out there. So first off, this is advice. And so basically it's a planning only software. And so what it does is it has the CPP, the OAS rules. It has all of these different mechanisms built into the software. You put in all of your data, all of your income, all of your expenditures, all of your future plans. Basically what you would do to sit down with a financial advisor, where you pay anywhere from say $1,000 to $3,000 to have one of these plans drawn up. You're simply doing it yourself, a DIY solution, and you're putting it into the software. I think it's something like $9 a month. Again, you can just try it out if you're interested in it. But again, you don't have to. So the thing with this is when you plug all of the information into the software, it'll give you these graphs to show you what it would look like by the time you put in your end date of life. So if you say, I'm going to be alive till about 89, it'll show you what your portfolio value will look like then, because it's looking at what your estate value is and assessing how much money you're going to have in the end. And it also looks at historical data with the rates of returns and saying, okay, what if the economy is really bad, and what if there's a really bad sequence of return in that first few years of retirement. Like, that really affects a lot of people that are in the retirement phase. And so then what it does is it'll look at all of that, and it'll give you different types of AI solutions. So it'll say, hey, maybe you can consider delaying your CPP and, starting your RRSPs earlier. So it gives you all of these various scenarios that you can play out. And maybe you might want to look at, well, maybe I'll do part-time work, or, maybe my wife will retire early, or, I'm going to retire early, or whatever the scenario is. You can play around with the software and you can determine what kinds of solutions work the best. So you can not only maximize your investment dollars by using an index approach and, following the market, but you can actually use planning software now, and you can actually have your retirement plan and maximize it as well too. And there's another software, I believe, down in the States that a lot of people seem to really appreciate, called Bolding. They do have a free plan as well too, if you're wanting to try that out. I wish Advice had something similar to that. But if it's something that you want to check out, go and check them out. They have a really cool software as well, and kind of does the same sort of thing. And so those are some options that you can consider if you're nearing retirement, or say you're trying to save up for retirement. And lastly, if you really enjoyed this video and you feel like this information needs to get out there, definitely comment, like the video, subscribe to the channel, because it really pushes this video out. And we're trying to push education to those DIYers to be able to know how to do investing on their own and not have to pay those astronomical fees that financial advisors will charge. And so I'm looking forward to see you guys in the next video.